In the heart of Mecca, where idols loomed over hearts and minds, a storm was rising, silent, divine, and unstoppable. For generations, the Quraysh ruled with pride, clinging to stone gods and worldly power. But when a man named Muhammad dared to whisper the truth, that there is only one God, the ground beneath their legacy began to tremble. Mockery, lies, and fury followed him. But so did something else, something unseen, a protector from a realm beyond ours. This is not just the story of a prophet, it is the unseen war of truth against arrogance, and the voice that silenced a city. In Mecca, the city of idols and ancient pride, time moved with the rhythm of tradition. From sunrise to sunset, the people prayed, traded, and honored their customs. The Kaaba stood at the center of it all, surrounded by stone effigies, each an embodiment of a false god, each carved by human hands but worshipped as if it held divine power. The city pulsed with wealth, built on trade and pilgrimage, and no one benefited more than the Quraysh, the tribe who held Mecca's reins in both faith and fortune. The Quraysh were the city's elite, the chosen bloodline, the ones who controlled the flow of goods and the hearts of the people. Their authority was law. Their idols were untouchable. Their influence stretched far beyond the mountains of Hijaz, and no one dared question them, until a quiet man, raised among them, returned from the cave of Hira with a message that shattered the silence of centuries. Muhammad ibn Abdullah, the orphan, the trustworthy, the man they once admired, now stood before them, speaking words that felt like thunder in a land of slumber. "There is no God but Allah," he said, "and I am his messenger." The words struck the Quraysh like a whip across the back. They were not merely a call to faith, they were an earthquake under the foundation of Mecca itself. To abandon the idols was to abandon trade. To worship one unseen God was to erase the legacy of generations. It was heresy. It was a rebellion. It was dangerous. At first, the people whispered. The old men in the market scoffed behind their beards. The women exchanged glances. The children mimicked the prophet in jest. The Quraysh leaders met in private councils, their voices tight with anxiety. "He will ruin us," they muttered. "If we do not stop him, the people will believe him." But the prophet did not stop. His voice remained steady, his words precise. He called not with anger, but with mercy, not with swords, but with reason. He spoke of the day of judgment, of accountability, of paradise and hellfire. He reminded them of Ibrahim, the friend of Allah, who once smashed idols and called to Tawheed. And he warned them this life was fleeting and false gods could not save them. Their response was to mock him. They called him names they once would never dare speak to him. "Madman," they spat, "sorcerer, liar, possessed." They laughed as he walked through the streets, pointing fingers and hurling insults. In their arrogance, they thought their words could break him. But Muhammad walked on. His face is calm, his gaze lowered, his patience was unmoved. Behind their laughter was fear, the kind of fear only truth can bring. They saw their children listening, their slaves converted, their wives were growing silent when he spoke. This was no ordinary man, and this was no ordinary message. What the Quraysh did not know, what no human eye could see, was that someone else was watching. In the realm beyond the veil of sight, a being stirred. A Jinn, once lost in the rebellion of his kind, had heard the Quran. Its verses had wrapped around his heart like light through darkness. His name was Abdullah ibn Abhar. He had turned away from the arrogance of his past and embraced the message of the prophet. And now he watched silent, unseen, as his beloved messenger was mocked, ridiculed and slandered. Abdullah could feel the weight of every insult hurled at the Prophet. It stung not just in the air of Mecca, but across realms. He had remained patient, hidden from the world of men, knowing that the will of Allah unfolds with wisdom. But this day, this particular day, the cruelty of the Quraysh pierced deeper than before. The Prophet was walking once again through the streets, his shoulders steady despite the burden he carried. The mockery was louder this time, harsher. A crowd had gathered. The elders sneered, the youth jeered, and the leaders stood back with folded arms, feeding the fire with smirks and murmurs. "Look at him," one shouted. "He thinks he speaks with angels." "Where are his followers today?" another mocked. "Has even the wind abandoned him?" Their words were blades, yet the Prophet said nothing. He did not respond. He did not flinch. But something else did. In the unseen realm, Abdullah ibn Abhar's patience cracked. He could no longer watch in silence. The love he held for Allah's messenger, the loyalty that burned like flame, demanded that he act. And so, without stepping into the physical world, the Jinn summoned his voice. It was a voice born of flame, refined by faith and granted permission by the Lord of the worlds. With power that transcended the walls of Mecca, Abdullah spoke. The earth did not shake, but the air changed. A voice, deep, thunderous, unlike anything the ears of man had heard, swept through the marketplace. "Do you mock the one sent by the Creator of all things?" The laughter ceased instantly. Faces twisted in confusion and fear. The Quraysh turned, eyes wide, searching for the speaker, but there was no one. No mouth moved, no lips opened. Only the Prophet remained standing, calm as before, his eyes steady and unwavering. The voice came again, louder now. "You insult the messenger of Allah as if your words hold power. Do you not see, Tuan? You are nothing but dust before his decree." Terror gripped their hearts. This was no illusion, no trick. The elders stumbled backward. The children ran. Even the boldest of men felt their courage melt away like wax before fire. They looked at one another, hoping someone would explain what had just happened. But no one could. For a third time, the voice spoke, now like rolling thunder across the desert sky. "Your mockery is noted. Your arrogance is seen. But know this, you do not mock a man. You challenge the decree of the one who created you, and his wrath, when it comes, none can escape." The crowd began to scatter. Some tripped in panic. Others clung to walls. And in the center of it all, Muhammad stood untouched. The fear that had gripped them did not touch him. For he knew the voice. He knew that Allah's help arrives in ways beyond what the eye can comprehend. Abdullah ibn Abhar, his task fulfilled, faded back into the unseen. His voice may have fallen silent, but the echo remained. The Quraysh would never forget that day. The voice, the fear, the messenger who stood calm while the mighty fled. The air in Mecca had shifted. Though the sun still rose over the red sands and the Kaaba remained at the city's center, a strange quiet now lingered in the hearts of its people. The streets, once filled with laughter mocking the Prophet Bayin, had grown cautious. The eyes of the Quraysh, once full of smug certainty, now darted from shadow to shadow, unsure of what they might find. The voice they had heard, unseen, untouchable, haunted them. The elders tried to dismiss it as an illusion, a trick of the mind, a lie whispered into the ears of the weak. But the truth settled in their bones, heavy and unshakable. Something had answered on behalf of Muhammad, something not of this world. In their private gatherings, the Quraysh leaders' voices were now less sure, their words no longer sharp with confidence, but brittle with unease. They could not admit it aloud, not to one another, not even to themselves, but they had felt it. a presence that defied their understanding. And though they plotted still, their schemes carried the weight of desperation, not conviction. Muhammad, meanwhile, walked on as he always had, with calmness, with patience, his mission unchanged. The revelation continued, each verse descending like divine rain upon a parched land. More hearts began to open. A slave would convert in the darkness of night, fearing the lash of his master. A young man would weep in secret, the words of the Quran breaking the chains in his soul. Even some of the Quraysh, the very persecutors of truth, began to feel the pull of something they could not resist, a truth that wrapped around their hearts like light. But with growth came pain. The more people turned toward Islam, the more vicious the Quraysh became. When words failed, they used fists. When isolation did not work, they used bribery. When bribery failed, they resorted to torture. The Muslims were beaten, starved, and cut off from the city's trade and resources. The Prophet watched with anguish, but also with unwavering determination. He bore their suffering upon his shoulders, guiding them like a shepherd through fire. Yet even amid this storm, stories of quiet defiance bloomed. A mother shielding her son from a stone, a husband whispering the Shahada to his wife before being dragged away, a former idol maker, now a secret believer, refusing to carve another god from stone. Islam was spreading, not with the power of weapons, but with the power of conviction. The Quraysh could not understand it. No matter how hard they struck, no matter how deep their cruelty, the believers only grew stronger. In the unseen world, Abdullah ibn Abhar watched. The Jinn, once of the rebellious, now loyal to Allah, had spoken once before, and that single moment had shaken Mecca. But he did not act again, not yet. He understood the laws of the unseen and the wisdom of divine timing. Still, his connection to the Prophet remained unbroken. He followed him from the shadows, unseen, unheard, yet always present. He watched as Muhammad endured every insult, every attack, without retaliation. It filled him with awe and reverence. He had known many beings, human and jinn alike, but never had he witnessed patience like this. The Prophet did not know when or how the next trial would come, but he knew it would. One morning, as he rose from prostration in the Kaaba, he found himself surrounded. The Quraysh had gathered again, emboldened by their unity. Abu Lahab was there, with eyes like burning coal. Abu Jahl, too, his face twisted in scorn. They hurled their insults again, this time louder, crueler. They mocked his lineage, accused him of sorcery, claimed he was possessed. One man threw dust upon him, another spat at his feet, a third laughed. "Where is your Lord now, O Muhammad? Where are the legions that guard you?" Muhammad remained silent, his heart anchored in Tawakkul. But Abdullah ibn Abhar stirred again. He had waited, watched, and listened. This time he would not speak from afar. Invisible to the human eye, he moved through the streets of Mecca, unseen but not unfelt. The wind shifted, as if nature itself bent in reverence to his presence. The Quraysh felt it again, that eerie stillness before a storm. Their mockery slowed, their words faltered. Then, from the very air around them, a voice thundered, not just in sound, but in presence. "O people of Quraysh, has your arrogance blinded you?" The voice came from everywhere and nowhere. It filled the streets, rolled through the walls, and pierced every soul present. "You challenge the messenger of Allah, yet you are but clay molded by his will. Do you believe your idols can save you now?" The Quraysh staggered. Abu Lahab clenched his fists, his mouth moving, but no sound came out. Abu Jahl stepped back, suddenly pale. The voice continued, "This man whom you insult is guarded not by men, but by the decree of the Most High. You strike him with words, but know that the angels themselves watch your cruelty, and from the unseen, we too stand in defense of the truth." The people of Mecca had never heard anything like it. Even the bravest among them, warriors hardened in battle, felt their knees weaken. Some fled, others fell to the ground. The prophet remained still, his heart quietly echoing the name of Allah. He knew now what the others did not, that the unseen forces were no longer silent. That night, whispers filled the city. Men spoke in hushed tones behind locked doors. Mothers clutched their children. The bravest Quraysh leaders could not sleep. A voice from beyond had spoken, not through hallucination, not through fear, but with clarity, strength, and a warning that pierced their pride. Days turned into weeks. The Quraysh continued their persecution, but the intensity had dulled. They now struck from behind shadows. Their mockery was cautious. The prophet, however, was unchanged. The verses of the Quran continued to descend, majestic and powerful. His followers increased. His resolve deepened. Abdullah ibn Abhar withdrew again into the unseen, content that he had fulfilled what needed to be done. He was not sent for war. He was not sent for vengeance. He was a witness, a protector, a reminder that the battle for truth stretched beyond the world of men. In the realm of the unseen, others had watched too. The Jinn are many. Among them are believers and rebels, servants and enemies. And when one Jinn, known for his strength, approached Abdullah with curiosity and awe, he asked, "Why defend a man of clay?" Abdullah ibn Abhar answered, "Because he speaks with the words of heaven. And when the earth mocks the heavens, even the unseen must rise." Thus, even in the realm beyond sight, the name of Muhammad was honored. His message, carried through verses recited by the lips of men, stirred the unseen world into reverence. The Quraysh had long believed their power absolute, their idols eternal. But now they began to see cracks, small, undeniable fractures in the illusion they had built. Though they plotted, Allah plotted too, and He is the best of planners. And so Mecca waited, its people restless, its rulers rattled. The prophet moved through its alleys unshaken, untouched by fear. Behind him walked his companions, their hearts ignited with purpose. Around him hovered the unseen angels, Jinn and divine protection, all awaiting the command of the Most High. The voice of Abdullah ibn Abhar had come like thunder, but thunder is only the herald. What was coming? It was raining. And so the sands of Mecca bore witness to a story that would echo through eternity, a story not just of one man's mission, but of divine truth piercing through darkness. The Prophet Muhammad, surrounded by trials and hostility, stood unyielding. Every insult hurled at him, every wound inflicted, was met not with retaliation, but with patience rooted in certainty. He knew the source of his strength. He knew that Allah was with him. In the realm unseen to the eyes of men, forces moved at Allah's command. From angels who recorded every word to a Jinn once rebellious, now redeemed, each played a part in the unfolding of a plan written before time began. Abdullah ibn Abhar's voice was only a fragment of that divine will, a sign that the truth was guarded by powers beyond comprehension. The Quraysh, once proud and defiant, were shaken. Their mocking no longer rang with the same confidence. A fear had crept into their hearts, and doubt began to take root. They could try to deny it. They could continue to scheme. But deep down they had witnessed something they could never unsee. The truth defended not only by the believers, but by the very unseen world they had long ignored. Islam continued to rise, not by sword but by light, and with every soul that embraced it, Mecca drew closer to its destined transformation. A day would come when idols would fall, when hearts would surrender not to fear but to faith. The prophet walked toward that day with steadfast resolve, and behind him marched the tide of history, unstoppable, divinely guided. For when the unseen rises in defense of truth, no force in heaven or earth can stand in its way.